Yeah, a lot better to be sitting here with a win than a loss, without a question. Really, first and foremost, so appreciative and grateful that we got to play that game at home, and the environment was really cool, and there's no question that our fan base truly helps us win. I mean, I think you go back to when's been the last time we've lost here. It's been a while, and I really attribute that a lot to the energy that Husky Nation brings to the table, and it's awesome. Love that. Appreciate how hard our guys played. In some ways, kind of willed it to happen. There was some really good, clean football, and some stuff that definitely needs to be cleaned up, and kind of even some head-scratching stuff that you think we'd make some of these plays that we didn't make. But I just like the passion that was in that stadium, how hard they played. You knew that Stanford was going to come back and make some sort of run. You'd hope that we could have maybe scored another touchdown or two in the second half to take some pressure off everybody. But it didn't happen, and had to grind it out, which we seem to do for most of our games. It's kind of how we play.
Is that frustrating at all, that's kind of how you play, that it's the grind it out?
Extremely. I think it's, on one hand, you really respect the kids for how hard they play and figuring out ways to get it done for the most part. And on the other hand, I think when you kind of feel like you have more to you, you'd like to be able to be more consistent and, give our guys some breathing room.
What were the head-scratching things?
Just certain plays. We have every game that I'm like, I think we should be able to make that play or not make that error. I watch a lot of football, not just us in terms of tape and all those things, and even some, high-performing teams have some of that stuff. You're going to have it, but when you're, the margin for error, which is kind of how we've been all year, is slim. Those things get frustrating.
What did you think of JoJo's ejection?
What do you mean? What did I think of it?
Right call, wrong call.
Yeah, I mean, targeting is targeting. I mean, it seems like we have this conversation every week, and targeting is targeting, and it's hard. I mean, he was coming in there kind of low, and the receiver was low, and it happens, and they're frustrating things, but head out of the game is the number one thing.
Chris, you mentioned on Thursday
you had a couple kind of quote-unquote hypotheses about the offense. Mm-hmm. After the first quarter, 18 minutes, did you feel like maybe a couple of those had worked themselves out?
That's us. At times the kind of head-scratching stuff is like even at Cal, how we start the game to go down there and run all those plays and, get a touchdown, which is really hard to do, and then kind of go away for a while. I mean, that's head-scratching. And then, we come out and start for the whole first half for the most part, against a good defense, playing at a high level, and come out in the second half and, make some plays, but don't get points like we need to get them. And, for whatever reason, that's just kind of how we've been, kind of up and down for games.
Two-way street, but at halftime, how much of that is you guys maybe not making the plays you made in the first half, and how much of that was Stanford maybe making some adjustments?
Well, I seem to think a lot of times the halftime thing is overrated in terms of, like, we don't see teams come out and make these major adjustments, and we don't make major, it's tweaks. It's a play here. Oh, we haven't got to this yet. We want to get back to that. There are some tweaks, but it's not like you're coming out with a new game plan. So what they were doing, I will say this, Stanford's offense, they made plays. Our guys were in position. We had two guys at times, or one guy in great shape, and the kids made plays. And, we've looked at that and trying to, hey, next year we'd probably do this. But at the end of the day, Costello threw some tight balls and some very tight windows, and those big receivers made plays on that side of the ball to kind of bring them back. And, we didn't make those type of plays on offense in the second half to kind of really get something going.
You guys think defensively on the last Stanford drive, you kind of benefited from the substitution rules being able to be allowed to run guys off?
Yep. What about that?
Just, I mean, how much did that benefit your defense being able to get guys off the field when Stanford subbed on that last?
Well, I think that always helps. You know, when teams are, you know, a no-huddle team and you run a handful of plays back-to-back, there's a lot of energy expended, certainly in that D line. So to be able to rotate some fresh guys in there does matter. Couple that with the fact that they have to give us time to get out there and match when time's of the essence. That certainly helped.
Did you notice that on film, that maybe that was something when they tried to go up-tempo or maybe end-of-half type situations where they would maybe sub in situations where other teams maybe wouldn't?
They were no different to me, excuse me, than us and a lot of teams. I mean, there's certain plays you just don't want to run with certain people. And so you're always subbing. Now you get in those crunch situations, your menu becomes a little tighter and more basic. But certain times it's like, we're in this situation, I don't want these plays. I need to get new people on there. And so it does happen.
So philosophically, if you put yourself into David Shaw's shoes, would you have been doing the same types of things?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not, I don't know. All I know is they sub, so we sub.
Did you think at all on 4th and 1 from the 44, a couple minutes left to go?
Oh, yeah, when we punted?
Yeah. Did you think at all about
not for 2 seconds.
Or send your offense out there at least to see if they jump?
No, I hate that. We're not doing that. HUD. Everybody walks off the press. If we're staying out there, we're going for it. So
You really hate that?
I don't like it.
Why?
I think everybody knows what you're doing. You know, it's like after the first 2 HUDs, it's like, oh, here we go. Then you walk off the field all depressed. So, no, we were not going to see if they jumped offside. Stanford's too smart for that, okay?
So I can assume that you won't ever be doing that?
You can assume that.
Okay.
Go ahead and assume it.
Brian, on a snap count and what you think of his first game back?
It was good to have him out there. You know, it's different than practice, and it was really good to have him back out there and, you know, building up his stamina, building up his game speed, you know, all those type of things. It's good to have him out there.
You had a lot of young guys in that secondary, a bunch of second-year sophomores.
Yeah.
Playing big roles on Saturday. What did you say to those guys?
I mean, yeah, I don't think it was too young. They played all last year and we're at game 10. And so they've, you know, there's a lot of meaningful reps that those guys have got. They really have throughout the course of the last 2 years. And they didn't bat an eye, and we wouldn't expect them to bat an eye. They really played like I thought they would.
Something about Molden in particular, the way he's come along, that you guys feel like too?
Yeah, he's, you know, he's a heck. I mean, you see it on special teams all the time. He's usually the guy in there making the tackle somehow, some way, and he's just a really focused. He's a fun guy to be around. I mean, he shows up every day to go to work, and he's a guy that hasn't, you know, he hasn't been a full-time starter, and that's really rare for a guy to approach practice and all that. But then he gets his opportunity and he plays really good, so it's not surprising because of how he prepares.
You talked last week about what you saw was a lack of energy from the offense, I think, during practice. Mm-hmm. What did you notice looking back now on the week before the Stanford game, kind of how they bounced back?
Yeah, I mean, I always think that these guys, I wouldn't say like the last week that I felt a lack of energy. I felt a lack of execution on one practice. There was like this, we're better than this. And that carried over. I mean, you know, these kids, I don't think they, I mean, I haven't ever felt it where they go out here and it's like, what is this? We're just going through the motions. Now, I think you can go out there and work hard and not really get better. I mean, it's like, is this, and, you know, these practices are hard and you're in, you know, deep into the season and all those things. And so times there's going to be ebbs and flows, and certain days, certain people are going to, you know, be on the lower end. That's where the teammates got to pick them up. And sometimes when it's a handful of guys that maybe, I don't know. It's just, you know, one of those things that one practice that we had was not something that we were accustomed to seeing around here. And it was just little stuff like alignment stuff. It wasn't, you know, maybe a drop ball here or there, but all that little stuff you could just tell. It was like, that's what this is all about, attention to detail.
Miles come out of the game.
I think he came out pretty good. I really do. I haven't seen him. We just watched tape yesterday and and all that kind of stuff. And so I think he did good, and it was nice to have him back in there.
How do you feel about the timing of your bye? Would you prefer it to be earlier?
I think he'd always prefer it to be kind of somewhere in the middle. But we're happy to have it now. I mean, it's just very strange to have it this late for sure. But that's kind of how the schedules go. I mean, I don't know any coach that looks at their schedule and go, I really like this schedule, like who we're playing when and when the buys are. I mean, so, I'm glad we have it now, but I think ideally it would have been somewhere more in the middle.
What's your schedule like this week? And is it hard for the kids to get away, maybe more so this week versus if you had to buy earlier in the year?
Well, when we say get away, it really has to do with get out of this building a little bit more. We got school and all those type of things. But I do want them to, we have a practice, excuse me, this week, and they have a little bit of weights. But other than that, I mean, the time is definitely minimized, and I really want them not thinking about football here for the next handful of days if we can. I think that's important.
Chris, I was just curious. I haven't talked to you about the Vices helmet thing in a while. Is there any update in terms of your guys' involvement?
Yeah, we have a couple more guys that are wearing them. Yeah, and it's still one of the top-rated helmets. I think there's another one out there that is right there with them, and I think it's awesome because I think Elijah Molden actually is one of the guys that's been wearing the Vices for a while, and I think he's kind of even gone back and forth with another one. And I kind of look at that and think that's kind of cool that there's some really good competition out there with some of these helmets that's going to continue to breed innovation and safety and those type of things. But we have a couple handful of guys that I think that are in them, and we're gonna keep pushing that with the guys that come in and spring ball, and I think the one thing that helps is some of these rankings on the helmets. The kids, we show them the rankings, and so they can make their own educated decisions.
With the feedback that you've gotten from guys like Elijah, is the improvement with fit and feel, is that the biggest thing?
I think it's good. Yeah, I think the guys that have been wearing them like them. Yep.
How much do illegal formation penalties drive you crazy? I mean, at the surface, it just feels like lineup running, right? Is it?
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, especially now. The one thing is, we have a lot of formations. We were on balanced formation a lot. And so, but they're nerve-wracking, and, we call them sins, self-inflicted negatives. I mean, that's really what they are. It's just like, really? And we spend a lot of time. We have refs at practice at least once a week, if not twice, paying attention to that. We do some little things in terms of where we spot the ball to make it tougher on the wide outs and tight ends, so they can't always use a line to judge where they line up. So we spend a lot of time on it.
And you had 2 shot blocks called in the first quarter. One of them was nullified. But what's kind of the lesson there?
One was poor communication on what one guy was going to do, so the other guy didn't know that he was going to go low and high, and we usually don't even do that. And then the other one was kind of one of those unfortunate, happens really fast where one guy's going, the other guy puts a hand. But these aren't something that are random, how did that, these are things that we have a whole session every week on, we call it FBI football intelligence, just different things that come up, whether it's from us or throughout the country. That we spend time looking at this and discussing it because it's hard to replicate in practice. Every single week we'll go through stuff like that. And that's one of the things, you're not trying to replicate a chop block in practice, but they come up and we'll show them, and the ones that have, to have 2 in one game is rare.
I think in past seasons, coaches have talked about when you have a bye week, a lot of that actual bye week part, not the next game week, but that bye week's kind of you go back to maybe some fundamentals and some other things. Is that kind of what you follow?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Part of it is certainly looking at ourselves on self-scout, and it's very hard to spend a lot of time when you're so cramped for time. So we have, a little bit extra time to be able to look at ourselves and go, what are we missing here? But then practice is set up to go back and, hammer out the fundamentals. We try to have that in every part of every practice anyways, fundamental things. That's what individual drills are all about, but we'll spend a little bit more time emphasizing that.
A couple areas where you feel like, based on the self-scout so far, that you really feel like need to get hammered on?
I don't think there's any 1 or 2 areas. I think there's, it's always the basics with, body position, hand placement, eyes. These are all basic fundamentals that if you have one of those things out of place, it is going to be a problem. Need to go back and make sure the tackling thing is appropriate, and that's hard in game 10, but I think our guys have been pretty solid, but you still have missed tackles out there, and so we try to recreate those a little bit and be smart with those guys how we do it.
You talked about the importance of getting them away from football, not thinking about football. Mm-hmm. Do you see the benefit of that when they come back to a regular week, not just physically, but mentally?
Yeah, I really think at this point of the season it's more mental than physical anyways. We've cut down practice. Most coaches have. We don't spend as much time on the practice field. We don't spend as much time in full pads, certainly. And so all that's physically, we're very, very aware of, like, okay, how many reps and how many reps do they have in the game, and does this guy need less reps? So we're on that pretty good. I think it's all mental, and certainly the grind of this season, has taken a toll on a lot of guys. And so to get a couple days to catch your breath and not think about football, I think is really healthy.
Jake talked after the game last week, not wanting to create any more unnecessary drama after the benching. Did you learn anything about him, the way he handled that? You spent all last week talking about how much
I learned nothing. I really did. I would expect nothing different from him. I've been around that guy a long time, and everything that transpired did not surprise me and was probably pretty appropriate. Yeah.
Regardless of what his status is for the rest of this year, has Trey Adams communicated to you that he plans to come back next year? Do you expect him back for?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I think that's the plan right now. But things are always fluid.
Coach, it looks like there's a handful of the true freshmen, like I think a couple of the defensive backs in Thule that have played more than one game. Mm-hmm. So does it feel like the rest of those guys, it's kind of up for grabs now in terms of who could maybe?
All the rest of freshmen? Yeah. So I think there's guys that are available. It's still really difficult to just throw them in there and say, oh, we're going to get them on the special team. Well, they haven't been really taking a bunch of these first team, second team, special team reps. And so to get him in there, and we're still going to do some of that, but it's not quite as simple as like, awesome, plug him in. He's ready to go. But we are looking at that, and we might see a couple more of those guys in there, but we're very aware of like the difficulty of that.
For instance, you had all 3 of the true freshman DBs in there. When you were looking back at the beginning of the year, were you saying ideally we would like to have all those guys be a part of that from a certain game or certain ideas? Basically, is it looking like how you wanted it to be?
You can kind of project this as it goes on, and it's always this time of year that there's certain guys have taken so many reps on offense or defense, the JoJo McIntoshes, all those DBs that you'd love on every single one of your special teams, but you're trying to build from beneath and get some other guys some meaningful reps while you're trying to protect some of these other guys that have had so many reps. The DBs, linebackers, are the type of guys that we love on all these special teams. Even more so than running backs and tight ends. I mean, those are the same kind of body types for the most part, but they're not tacklers. They don't work their entire life on tackling and, owning leverage and all those type of things. And so those are the ideal guys. But our DB numbers are not huge, and so it's kind of we're trying to figure out like how to best get the right people on there with not putting other guys in jeopardy.
You watched the Oregon State game live Saturday at 6, Stanford.
Oh, will I?
This weekend, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got that far, but I probably will. I probably will.
Have you talked much to Jonathan Smith?
I haven't talked to him at all. I really haven't. I think a couple of our other coaches have. I don't know if they spoke to him. I think they've texted him, but I leave guys alone the best I can during the season, and I'll talk to them afterwards.
Was that Keith Taylor's best game? You think Saturday?
It's a good question. We felt really good. I think Keith has been making really great progress. It's hard to have Jordan out, a senior like that's played so much, and it's his senior year. You always hate for that to happen. But on the other hand, Keith is another one of those true sophomores that we were talking about that, is ready to go and ready to play, and he's improving and getting better. It was good to see against a team that throws it well and against some good receivers. Yeah.